Yeah, I think you're talking about what I would put into two different things. So one is something that does manifest in time, and so like a flower blossoming. And there's an aspect of this work that does kind of mature and evolve in time. And sometimes it's important to kind of focus on that and highlight it. And I might do that in these conversations. But more fundamentally, what I'm pointing to doesn't behave in that way. And so, because we are aware that there is an evolution and that we do grow and mature, and there's kind of blossomings in that sense, we then confuse these two aspects, like that I will come to that peace or that which I'm looking for in the evolution, in the blossoming, and that never will come. And it might come as in moments, but in those moments where something does mature and blossom, what you're tasting was already there. And so the metaphor of the flower and what I was saying of the choice of opening up works at those two levels as well. So in the meditation, I was pointing to kind of a putting down of the search. And that is a choice that can happen now. And in a sense, the blossoming will happen now. And there's a kind of blossoming that only can happen now. It's not in the evolution, it's not in time. But then simultaneously that can happen, and there is still a remaining evolution of the growth, which is beautiful, and we can explore that. But the first thing is to really see, when you're in that seeking, to really see that you're reaching into time. And you might, as you're nodding, you recognize, you might be able to recognize more kind of regularly, oh, here it is again, here it is again, here it is again. But it repeats because the illusion hasn't been seen through totally. The illusion of time, in the sense that you're reaching for something to happen in time, and that's only existing in thought. So there is no future other than in your imagination. And it's a very tricky thing, because you could say, well, but tomorrow will come, for sure. And you know there will be changes that will happen. And so it's very tempting to grasp for those changes and to expect to be satisfied when certain changes happen and I make them happen. But that process is always reaching into imagination, into thought. And so one aspect is, yes, the flower or the tree will give fruit when it's ready, when it's at that stage of the evolution. But it can be at peace the whole way. The trouble is when we, as the plant that gives flowers, we are restless until we get the flowers, until we blossom. And then there isn't an actual moment of blossoming. It's a constant flowering, and the flowers fall, and the flowering, and the flowers fall, and the flowering, and the flowers fall. And then that process could seem like we are only satisfied for those moments because we're attaching to the flowering. And what this is about, what I'm pointing to, says, yes, you can live all of that and really enjoy it, but you can be completely at peace and satisfied in the movement right now, the whole movement. And that's the deeper opening that I'm talking about. And it is a choice. It is a choice of, you could talk about it in many different ways. It's a choice of allowing, or of letting go of the illusions, letting go of the beliefs. But it's also the choice of seeing what is actually true and real versus the preference of the attachment to illusions. I'm not sure if this is speaking to what you were bringing. Yeah. Yes, ultimately, what I think you're talking about, the habit of feeling safe, has to do with what's the underlying driver for all of this. And that has to do with pain. And so you're talking about a grief. There is a grief and a sadness in the undoing of illusions. There's also a pain in something we weren't yet able to fully meet when we were very young. And often, so what happens as we kind of let go of the seeking, that starts to come up. There is a very deep drive, which is, in a sense, the avoidance of that pain or sadness that's we've just not been able to be with. And so all of this contraction, all of these mechanisms are in a way a form of distancing from that. And it can have different flavors, right? For you, it might be, I'm using the word pain very generally. But it's very common for that to start bubbling up as you start to see the futility of the seeking in time. So there's in a sense, like the disillusion of a huge amount of energy and that we've put into that for a long time. And so something starts to end. So it's like the all of the dreams of what could have been, which you could think of as like a Santa Claus dream. And as you see the unreality of it, there is like a sadness. That to me sounds like as you start to taste more of the unknowable. And so these energies, you can't fully label them with thought. And so there's in a sense a realm of what you can label and function with in thought, and then there's a realm that's prior to that. And as you start opening up to that, you start to taste something that's more real. And what's more real is unknowable, in the sense that the mind can't label it or grasp it. And so what will happen is there will be again this pull and this temptation to go back into mind. And the mind's going to give you the directions, because you are reaching to thought for the way out, which is the way back into thought. Right? And so what you're describing as like the thoughts come in saying, this way, this way, this way, that's into the future, into time, which is into thought, which is away from the unknowableness of this foreign kind of sensation, which is all these energetics are basically sensations that are of a kind of a quality that you can't really think at them. And so it requires a kind of like a pause in the thought process. And so you're in that realm, in the kind of in between the contraction into thought, into time, and then what is real. And that's often when these energetics start to move. And yes, fear and pain or weird sensations are kind of possible labels for it, but labeling them won't help. It's almost like diving deep into swimming into the sensations, the experience, and tasting it, and becoming comfortable with the unknown. Yeah, the thing is, you can be fully open to that now, and the body then catches up. Because there is nothing other than mystery. There is only the illusion of something knowable.